Boy, do I feel like an idiot. It's been a decent little bit of time machining out this special little plug. Here's to remember to fit in there so I could use a puller to remove this gear. And the whole time, just sitting right here in front of my lathe, I had this. And I was intending, it's a pin, to make a tool post for this. See, I even got a nice new old stock square-headed set screw, 3/8 set screw to do that with. But this, all I'd have had to do was put a little divot in the end with a center drill. Would have worked perfect for the task. Oh well. I just thought that was, what are you gonna do, right? Well, it gave me a chance to run the lathe through its paces, and so I'm still getting used to little 9-inch South Bend and having some fun with it, seeing how heavy a cuts I can take. The apron definitely needs a little more attention, when I got this casting, I could tell, man, that the lathe that casting came off of had led a pretty hard life. So I'm looking forward to rebuilding my original casting, which is over there buried under the crap on the bench. Because it's still, good and tight. I just need to fix the worm gear bearing. But this will get me by for at least a little while. So I'm almost a bit sorry that I wasted the paint on it. But you know what? Once I get the original rebuilt, then I will probably eventually go about trying to actually rebuild this apron as well. Alright, enough of that. So, I got this somewhat cleaned up, and now it's time for round 2 of the cleaning. Plus I've got to tear into my reversing gear there as well and get it all cleaned up and make sure it's all right. Alright, see you in the next clip. Well, as you can see, we've got our headstock all pretty much back together. Everything's operating smoothly. Still haven't finally adjusted these bearings yet, but I'll get that done when I get her back into service. Our reversing gear tumbler has all been cleaned up nice. I had this pulley here and I put it in the Atlas. You see I got the big chuck still on it now. And I spun it to get it good and clean. So yeah, there's our headstock. Everything went pretty smoothly. I've, you can see I've gone ahead and I've pulled the lead screw and dropped the apron. And now I can give you guys a look inside this apron here, this early South Bend apron. Yeah, and as I stated earlier, the lockout for it would be right in here. This does look very close to the later South Bend aprons, so there is a possibility you could swap some later parts into here and have that lockout feature, but I'm not going to mess with it. Just in looking at this apron, you know, it's actually not quite as dirty inside as as I had expected to see. Not, I don't see any excessive wear anywhere. That worm does have a decent amount. Let's see. The worm does have a decent amount of wear in it. The worm wheel is good. And quite frankly, I think there's still going to be quite a lot of life left in this, but I'll put that on the list, and I'll probably remake that worm gear at some point in the future. But for now, just a good cleaning will suffice. You know, a few differences in this apron. You know, notice that there's no oil trough or anything in these early aprons. Everything is total loss lubrication. So you've got these oiling tubes that come into different key points. Only a single support for our worm gear. Later South Bends had a second support on the other end, making them a little stronger, which is another modification that could probably be done to this apron, but you know, it's been working fine for 90 plus years, so I ain't gonna mess with it. You know, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Alright, so I'll keep you updated as to how this goes on. I'll see you in the next clip. Dinner. Dinner in the machine shop. Got my fries and my pastrami and a nice cold Ruthless Rye. Yes, sir. A machinist's lunch. Well, dinner in my case. Oh, I'm just kind of assessing things and looking at them more closely. This is just a perfect example of why you want to, when you buy any old machine, even if it's in supposedly working condition, you know, you want to take it apart and at least give it a good going through. And, you know, like, you know, the guy that I bought this machine off of, you know, said, oh yeah, it works fine, you know, and, yeah, I was just using it the other day, you know, and it was clear he'd been doing, some wood turning on it, and that this lathe has spent a good part of its life in a wood shop and turning wood. But, you know, so to his eyes it was working, but it does have a ways to go. Anyhow, when you get in here, you're going to find all kinds of stuff like this. There's this oiling tube here, goes down to your half nuts. That was completely packed with shit, you know, and so that wasn't receiving any oil. If I just wanted to use this machine and I started threading on it without, well, first off cleaning this horribly dirty lead screw, but secondly, if I left this like that, you know, that's gonna create excessive wear, and furthermore, putting oil in there with all this stuff in there, it's going to wash some of that junk down, and it's going to get in and it's going to grind things away, so that's not good. That's a perfect example of why you go through things like this before you start using them. You know, like, I'm not sure if I said or not, but, you know, I could have, you know, tested this machine out under power. It was hooked up and quote-unquote running. But I didn't need to. You know, there's checks that you can go through, and you can't always look at everything when you're buying an old lathe. I always expect to find something that's going to need repair, you know, so... but yeah, you know, this oil hole here is clear, surprisingly, but I'm thinking that oil tube is not supposed to go here, but it's supposed to be pointing into there, so that's something I'm going to have to look up. I might be wrong about that. Interesting too that I don't know how well it'll pick up on the video, but this appears to have been scraped in at least a little bit. I don't see any scraping here, but I see what looks like some scraping here into the oil, and on this end into the oil. Yeah, they sure did build them right back then. So, I gotta get back to trying to get this apart. Couldn't get that nut to move, at least not really easily, so I dropped a little oil on it and I decided I'll come back to it. Same issue with that one. This one did move and is see if I can just, yeah, well, that one did move a little bit, so that's broke loose. That'll be for the that shaft there for the cross feed. All in all, this is a pretty dead simple apron. They can get a lot more complicated than this, so, you know, they say you know, anybody can complicate something, but it takes a real genius to make it simple. So I'm gonna get back to this, and I will see you in the next clip. One thing to note when you're disassembling an apron with the style of clutch is that usually the threaded part on here that you're gonna have to remove is going to be left hand. Sorry, video cut out for a moment, but anyway, usually this is going to be a left-hand thread, in that you're going to have to screw that clockwise in order to remove it, and counterclockwise in order to replace it. So I know it's this way on the South Bend apron, and this is a pretty small diameter screw. Actually, it's got a large head on it, but the screw itself is quite small. And a lot of people break that when they try to take these apart, because they see the large head and they put a lot of torque. And actually, let's see here. Just pull this real quick. And you can see the proportions there. So that's something you'll want to be really careful about when you're disassembling an apron, is or any machine. Is think about that part. If it rotates in one direction, usually they generally set the threads up so that they will tighten rather than loosen, based on the direction of that rotation. Now I'm going to get in here before I start torquing on it, and very carefully, you know, pick out all the gunk and very closely examine the end of this to try and determine, to make sure that that is indeed a left-hand thread. And if it's not, then I will report back, and I will let you know for sure, but I'm assuming that it is for now. Other thing, you know, don't force anything. Be patient when you're trying to get these machines apart. As I said in a previous video, you know, one of the first things I like to do is I'll walk along with a wrench, and I will just loosen up most things, you know, see whatever I kind of spot immediately, and I'll try to loosen that just to break it loose to see what's going to give me trouble. And if it doesn't break loose with good, you know, firm pressure with the wrench, then I'll drop a little oil on it and I'll come back to it later. So You know, this broke loose. I managed to get this to break loose. That one's stuck for now. That one's stuck for now. And, you know, for all I know, those haven't moved since, you know, 1922. So, tends to be when you got parts that are put together for a long time and have stayed together, they kind of want to stay together. So you got to be careful and just coax things apart, because when you get in a rush, that's when you start to break things and to make mistakes. You know, you'll inevitably, working on this old machinery, get frustrated with something, and you know, the tendency is to kind of want to just get a cheater bar or really muscle on it, and most of the time you really just shouldn't do that. You know, put some oil on it, walk away from it for a while, kind of think about it. Maybe come back later, apply a little heat, try again, you know, and eventually you'll be able to coax those parts apart, you know. Sometimes, you know, you'll have to come in and give it a good shock, and that's why I like these little short-handled, you know, soft blow hammers. I got a few of these laying around, and this one's got lead on one side and brass on the other, and you know, that lead gets deformed quite a bit. I take it and I squeeze it down in the vise and just kind of pound it back into shape. But that one's lasted me a good little while now. Seen a lot of use. Sometimes you'll have to hit the wrench with a hammer a little bit and just kind of shock it, you know. Don't get big hammers, because that's how you break things. These little hammers have served me perfectly well. It is not the force a lot of times, the push, it's that shock, you know, that fast jolt that will break things loose. Anyhow, I think this video might be getting a little bit long, so we're going to cut it for this part. And yeah, well, I think I said all I'm going to say for now. If you like these videos, please do like them. If you have any questions or anything to say, comments, you know where to put them. And if you'd like to see more, please do subscribe. And have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Update. This is, in fact, right-hand thread, not left-hand thread. See? Screws on. Screws off. It is, in fact, keyed with one of those little round keys that South Bend liked to use. This wrench helped tremendously. I needed something to grip onto this wheel with so it wouldn't turn while I was trying to get that nut off. And that's why, too, you want to be careful and try things in both directions. Sorry the video cut out again, but as I was saying, you know, it's one of the reasons that you want to you know, kind of try to jerk it a little bit in both directions, and whichever way it breaks loose, and or if you can get in there close and really examine it and see which way the thread exits, because you can almost always see the end of the thread. And I'll see if I can get the camera to focus on that. Come on, you. Well, it's about as good as it gets, but you'll usually be able to see which way the thread exits. So if it exits this direction, that means that it's a regular old right-hand thread. But if it exits this direction, then you're dealing with a left-hand thread. I also really like these wrenches. If you can find one of these, and it's in good shape, go ahead and buy it. is perfect for jobs and stuff like this, where, you know, I call these clamp wrenches because they're adjusting nut on them. It's hex, and you can take another wrench and put it around there and just clamp that on to whatever you're working on. The railroads liked these, and a lot of the times the way these were used was they would clamp it on to break something loose, and then hit it with a hammer. And you see, you know, these are definitely used with in that regard. These are both railroad marked, by the way. So that's either TCR&R or ICR&R. Maybe you railroad buffs out there could tell me a little bit more. This one's marked B&O as well. So that would be the Baltimore and Oregon Railroad, I believe. Anyhow, they're nice wrenches. You can usually get them real cheap at the swap meet. They clean up great, and they're perfect for jobs like this. And now I can go ahead and unbolt that and pull this all apart. Still working on breaking this one loose, and this one back here. Alright, I will see you in the next edition.